We're staying permanently now. You're just a guest in our own house. That's what my son's girlfriend announced at my 74th birthday dinner, in front of 20 relatives, in the house I'd paid for with 45 years of electrical work. Jennifer smiled like she'd just won the lottery. My son Daniel nodded along like a trained dog. Every eye in the room stared at me, waiting to see how a 74-year-old man handles public humiliation in his own dining room. But here's what Jennifer didn't know about that gift deed paperwork she was celebrating. My son thought he was inheriting a house. Instead, he'd just inherited the biggest shock of his life. I'm Edward Miller, and tomorrow morning, everything changed. Where are you listening from right now? Because what happened next will shock you, and I want to know if you've ever felt completely powerless in your own home. Hit subscribe. This story gets wild. I built my life one wire at a time. 45 years crawling through attics, fixing electrical panels, making houses safe for families like mine. My hands are scarred from copper cuts, my back aches from years bent over junction boxes, but every paycheck went toward one dream, buying a house where Dorothy and I could grow old together. We found it in 1987, a modest three-bedroom colonial on Maple Street for $89,000. Seemed like a fortune then. I worked double shifts for the down payment. Dorothy clipped coupons and made our clothes last twice as long. The day we signed those papers, Dorothy cried, happy tears. She pressed her wedding ring against the deed and whispered, "This is ours, Edward, really ours." 3 years ago, cancer took her. I held that same deed the night she died, feeling the weight of 36 years of memories. The kitchen where she baked Christmas cookies, the garden where she grew tomatoes that actually tasted like something, the front porch where we watched Daniel take his first steps. The house is worth $685,000 now. Funny how numbers change, but feelings don't. I promised Dorothy I'd leave something for Daniel, a foundation, a future. That's when Daniel came home. Daniel showed up on a Tuesday in March with 2 suitcases and shame in his eyes, 43 years old, looking like a teenager who'd wrecked the family car. "Dad, I lost the job." His voice cracked on the word lost, like it was something he'd misplaced instead of something he'd gambled away during company time. I knew about the poker apps, the sports betting. Dorothy had warned me years ago when Daniel borrowed money for his first investment opportunity. But what's a father supposed to do? Let his son sleep in his car? "Stay as long as you need," I told him. The divorce had cleaned him out. Sarah took the house, the kids, everything that mattered. Daniel moved into his old bedroom with its faded sports posters and participation trophies. At 43, I paid the grocery bills, covered his car payment, gave him spending money like he was 16 again. "Just until I get back on my feet, Dad." 2 months later, Jennifer appeared. She knocked on my door like she owned the place. Bleached blonde hair, fake nails clicking against her phone screen. Daniel trailed behind her like an embarrassed child. "This is Jennifer," he mumbled. "She'll be staying here too." The first red flag appeared on a Tuesday. Jennifer walked through my house like a real estate agent evaluating property, running her fingers along Dorothy's antique dresser, opening cabinets in the kitchen, checking water pressure in the upstairs bathroom. "Nice place," she announced. "Good bones. Could use updating, though." 29 years old, unemployed, had been living with some other guy until last week. Daniel explained this like it was romantic instead of concerning. She moved into the master bedroom, my bedroom, the room where Dorothy died. "Edward won't mind sleeping in the guest room," Daniel decided for me. "It's smaller and quieter, better for his back." I minded, but I didn't say anything. Jennifer redecorated immediately, threw out Dorothy's lavender curtains, and hung cheap blackout panels. Replaced our wedding photo with some motivational poster about living your truth. Within a week, she'd rearranged the entire living room. My reading chair, the one Dorothy bought me for retirement, ended up in the garage. "Creates better energy flow," she explained while Daniel nodded like she was quoting scripture. I found the credit card bill a month later, $8,500 charged to my account. New bedding, designer pillows, a coffee machine that cost more than my monthly electric bill. "We thought you wouldn't mind," Jennifer shrugged when I asked about it. That's when I made my first mistake. I called James Harrison on a Thursday morning. He'd been our family lawyer for 20 years, handled Dorothy's will, helped us with the house refinancing. Edward, good to hear from you. How are you holding up? His office smelled like leather and old coffee, the same desk where Dorothy and I had planned our future. Now I was planning something else entirely. I want to set up a gift deed for Daniel, I told him. The house. I want him to feel secure. Harrison leaned back in his chair. That's generous, Edward. But let's talk about your options. He pulled out a thick folder. Property law, gift deeds, life estates. The words blurred together like alphabet soup. A gift deed transfers ownership immediately, he explained. You'd keep what's called a life estate, the right to live there until you die. But Edward, his voice carried a warning, once you sign, the house belongs to Daniel legally. You couldn't sell it, mortgage it, or change your mind. I thought about Jennifer throwing out Dorothy's curtains, about the credit card bills, about Daniel's gambling problem. What if I need to protect myself? I asked. Harrison's eyes sharpened. Protect yourself from what? Hypothetically. He opened another folder, talked about witnesses, notarization requirements, proper legal procedures, how gift deeds could be challenged if not executed correctly. There are other options, he said quietly, more flexible arrangements. The lawyer asked a question that changed everything. Edward, why the rush? Harrison asked. You're 74, in good health. This house is your security. I told him about Daniel's situation. The girlfriend, the mounting bills, the feeling that I was losing control in my own home. I see this more often than you'd think, Harrison said. Adult children who mistake generosity for weakness. Parents who give away their power trying to buy peace. He pulled out a different set of documents, darker blue folders. Here's what I recommend. We prepare the gift deed paperwork, but we don't execute it immediately. Keep your options open. And Edward, he leaned forward, consider a backup plan. What kind of backup plan? Property values in your neighborhood are soaring. Developers are buying up houses left and right. If you ever needed to liquidate, you could do very well. He handed me a business card. Morrison Development Group. They've approached several of your neighbors. Fair prices, quick closings. I stared at the card. Heavy stock, gold lettering. I'm not saying sell, Harrison clarified. I'm saying keep your options open. A gift deed is permanent. A sale. That's reversible if you change your mind quickly enough. He walked me through something called a delayed closing. How I could sign a sale agreement but retain possession for months. How life estates could be complicated. Think it over, Edward, and remember, generosity should never come at the expense of your own dignity. Within weeks, everything started changing. Jennifer started making rules, posted them on the refrigerator like I was a tenant. No visitors without 24-hour notice. Quiet hours, 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. All food purchases must be approved. She threw dinner parties for her friends, loud, messy affairs that left wine stains on Dorothy's good tablecloth. When I asked them to keep it down, Jennifer laughed. Edward, you're being such a grump. We're young. We deserve to have fun. Daniel just shrugged when I complained. Come on, Dad, they're not hurting anything. But they were hurting everything. I found Daniel in my home office one Tuesday, going through my financial papers. Just checking if you've got enough money for the property taxes, he lied. His hands shook slightly. The gambling itch again. $3,000 disappeared from my checking account that week. Small withdrawals, cash advances. Daniel claimed it was for emergencies and job interview clothes. Jennifer started telling neighbors I was getting forgetful, that she and Daniel were looking after my affairs now. Mrs. Patterson from next door actually asked if I needed help managing my medication. The humiliation burned in my chest like acid reflux. I made more phone calls. To Harrison, to the business card he'd given me. Morrison Development was very interested in my property. Prime location. Perfect for their new senior living complex. We could close in 60 days, the rep said. Cash offer, above market value. But the worst was yet to come. The phone calls became a routine. Tuesday mornings when Daniel slept late and Jennifer went to the gym. I'd sit in my car outside the library and dial Harrison's office. The Morrison Group made an official offer, I told him during the third call. 685,000 cash. That's excellent, Edward. 20% above market value. They want to demolish and rebuild. Senior housing complex. Ironic, isn't it? Harrison understood irony. He also understood revenge. If you're serious about this, we need to move carefully. Gift deed has to be properly witnessed and notarized to be valid. If those requirements aren't met, the deed would be worthless? Completely invalid. You'd retain full ownership rights. A plan crystallized, beautiful in its simplicity. I met with Morrison that Thursday, signed a purchase agreement with a 90-day possession clause. I could stay until December 1st. The demolition crew would arrive December 2nd. My birthday was November 28th. The timing felt like Dorothy's hand guiding mine. I set up the trust fund next. Every penny from the house sale would go to Daniel's children, my grandchildren. Let them have something their father couldn't gamble away. Smart move, Harrison approved. Protects the money and sends a message. I bought a condo across town, small but comfortable, move-in ready. Strange how planning your own disappearance could feel so empowering. Everything was falling into place. The credit card statement arrived on a Monday. $8,500 in charges I'd never approved. Victoria's Secret. Expensive restaurants. A weekend getaway to Atlantic City. I found Jennifer in the kitchen, making herself coffee with a $400 machine she'd bought with my money. We need to talk about these charges. She didn't even look up from her phone. Oh, those. Daniel said you wouldn't mind. Daniel said? You've got plenty of money, Edward. Don't be so tight. My hands shook as I held the statement. 45 years of careful spending, of budgeting and saving, of choosing store brands over name brands. This is theft, Jennifer laughed. Actually laughed. It's not theft if Daniel approved it. And technically, since this will be our house soon anyway. What do you mean, your house? Daniel explained everything. The gift deed, how you're signing the house over because you feel guilty about being such an absent father. The words hit like a physical blow. Daniel had told her about the gift deed, twisted it into some narrative about guilt and obligation. Where's Daniel? Job interview. She air-quoted the words. At the casino. At the unemployment office. I walked upstairs and packed a small bag. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. When I came back down, Jennifer was still scrolling through her phone. By the way, she said without looking up, we're having people over Friday night. You might want to stay in your room. But that was nothing compared to what came next. The humiliation happened at Miller's hardware store, the same place I'd bought supplies for 40 years. Jennifer stood at the paint counter, surrounded by her girlfriends, talking loud enough for half the store to hear. The old man is getting so confused, she announced. Yesterday he forgot he'd given me permission to redecorate. Started yelling about his dead wife's curtains. The girls giggled like teenagers. Daniel says it's early dementia. That's why we moved in. Someone needs to manage his finances before he loses everything. Mrs. Chen from the Postal Service was standing 2 aisles over. She'd known me since Dorothy and I moved to the neighborhood. Her eyes met mine with pity and confusion. It's actually a blessing, Jennifer continued. The house will be ours free and clear when he... She made a vague gesture. You know. I wanted to speak, to defend myself, to explain that my mind was sharper than ever. Instead, I smiled and walked away. But I had a plan. That evening, I called Harrison. The gift deed paperwork we discussed, I said. I want you to prepare it, but leave the witness line blank. Edward, if it's not properly witnessed, I know exactly what I'm doing. The next morning, I had Daniel sign the papers in the kitchen. No witnesses, no notary, just his signature on worthless documents. He hugged me afterward. Thanks, Dad. This means everything. They had no idea what I'd already set in motion. Jennifer changed the locks on my home office on a Wednesday. I found her installing the new deadbolt with a power drill she'd bought with my credit card. I need a private space for my online business, she explained. What online business? Lifestyle coaching. I'm building a personal brand. She moved my desk to the garage, my tools, my files, 40 years of electrical contractor records, all boxed up and stacked between paint cans and lawn equipment. Don't worry, Edward. Everything's safe out here. Safe. in an unheated garage where moisture would destroy everything Dorothy and I had built. Daniel helped her carry out my filing cabinets. Wouldn't meet my eyes when I asked what he thought he was doing. Jennifer needs the space, Dad. You weren't using the office much anyway. Wasn't using it? I'd paid bills there every month since 1987, balanced checkbooks on that desk, filed our taxes on that ancient computer. Now it held Jennifer's ring lights and camera equipment for her lifestyle coaching videos. The final indignity came when she posted new house rules on the refrigerator, printed on official-looking letterhead she'd designed herself. Miller Residence Guidelines, as if my own name had become a business. No access to office space without permission. All mail must be reviewed before opening. Visitors restricted to designated hours. I stood in my own kitchen, reading rules for living in my own home. That night, I called Harrison again. They had no idea what I'd already set in motion. The breaking point approached like a slow-motion accident. You see it coming, but feel powerless to stop it. Jennifer's friends treated my house like their personal clubhouse. They'd arrive unannounced, raid my refrigerator, leave their mess for me to clean up. "Edward's like our house dad," one of them giggled. "He keeps everything running while we have our girls' nights." House dad, in my own home. I retreated to the garage most evenings, sat on a folding chair between boxes of my displaced life, listening to them laugh inside. The house Dorothy and I built now echoed with strangers' voices. Daniel started bringing home lottery tickets, scratch-offs by the dozen. The dining room table, where Dorothy served Thanksgiving dinner for 20 years, became his personal casino. "I can feel it, Dad. The big win is coming." He'd lost 3 more job interviews, spent his unemployment check on scratchers and fantasy football leagues, but somehow that was my fault too. "If you weren't so negative about everything, Dad, maybe I'd have better luck." Negative. For asking him to look for actual work. I documented everything. Took photos of the gambling tickets, the credit card bills, Jennifer's entitled behavior. Harrison said evidence might be important later. "Later for what?" I'd asked. "You'll know when the time comes." My birthday was 2 weeks away. Jennifer insisted on planning the party. "It'll be perfect," she promised. A real celebration. The birthday dinner was the last straw. Jennifer spent the week before my birthday transforming my dining room into her vision of a sophisticated celebration. She rented expensive china, bought imported wine, hired a photographer to document the evening. All charged to my credit card, naturally. "This is going to be so special, Edward. A night you'll never forget." She invited everyone. My sister Patricia and her husband, Daniel's cousins, neighbors I barely knew. Even Mrs. Chen from the post office, though I suspected Jennifer's motives weren't entirely pure. I want everyone to see how well we're taking care of you," Jennifer explained while arranging flowers she'd ordered from the most expensive shop in town. The phrase made my skin crawl. Taking care of me. Like I was an invalid instead of the man paying for everything. Daniel seemed nervous as the day approached, kept starting conversations and then trailing off. Like he wanted to tell me something but couldn't find the words. "Dad, about tonight," he'd begin, then shake his head. "Never mind." My phone buzzed that afternoon. A text from Harrison. "Everything ready on our end. Enjoy your birthday." I stared at the message until the screen went dark. 48 hours until December 2nd. 48 hours until the demolition crew arrived. Jennifer spent the morning cooking, well, heating up catered food and pretending she'd made it herself. The house filled with artificial smells of artificial hospitality. "This is going to be perfect," she kept saying. Then came the night that broke me. The dinner started beautifully. Patricia brought wine from the bottle shop Dorothy loved. My nephew shared stories about his new job. Mrs. Chen complimented the food, not knowing Jennifer had ordered every bite. For an hour it felt like old times, like family. Then Jennifer stood up. She tapped her wine glass with a fork until conversation died. Her smile was sharp enough to cut crystal. "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate Edward's birthday. This has been such a special year for our little family." Our family. The words scraped against my ears. As many of you know, Daniel and I have been living here while we save money for our future. But tonight, I have some exciting news to share. My chest tightened. Around the table, faces turned toward Jennifer like flowers following the sun. Edward has decided to officially sign the house over to Daniel and me. We're not just staying here temporarily anymore. This is our permanent home now. Silence crashed over the table. Patricia's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Edward is just living here on our generosity now, Jennifer continued, her voice bright with manufactured joy. Isn't that wonderful? He gets to stay in the house he loves, and Daniel gets the security he deserves. My face burned. Every eye in the room stared at me, waiting for confirmation, for denial, for some explanation of what they'd just heard. Mrs. Chen's mouth hung open. Patricia gripped her husband's arm. We're the real homeowners now, Jennifer declared, raising her glass in a toast, to new beginnings and family taking care of family. Every eye was on me, waiting for my reaction. I stood slowly. My chair scraped against the hardwood floor Dorothy and I had refinished together in 1994. The room held its breath. 20 years of hosting family dinners in this space, and now everyone waited to see how I'd handle my own public execution. Thank you, I said quietly. Thank you for that lovely toast, Jennifer. My voice didn't shake. 45 years of dealing with difficult customers had taught me control. And thank you all for coming tonight. It means more than you know. I walked to the kitchen without another word. Behind me, conversation exploded like a dam breaking. Whispered questions. Patricia's shocked voice. Daniel's stammered attempts at explanation. I pulled my cell phone from my pocket and dialed Harrison's number. It's time, I said when he answered. Are you sure? Through the kitchen doorway, I could see Jennifer holding court, answering questions about our plans for our house. Daniel nodded along like a bobblehead dog. The paperwork you requested is ready, Harrison confirmed. Morrison Group confirmed for Thursday morning. Thursday, December 2nd. 2 days away. And the other arrangements? All set, and the trust fund is established. Your new place is ready. The moving truck is scheduled for 6 a.m. I hung up and returned to the dining room. Jennifer was explaining our new family dynamic to Mrs. Chen, who looked like she'd bitten into spoiled fish. Edward understands that this is for the best, Jennifer was saying. At his age, owning property is just too much responsibility. I smiled and began clearing plates. That's when I walked away and made a call. The dinner dissolved into uncomfortable fragments after my kitchen exit. Guests made polite excuses and early departures. Patricia cornered Daniel near the front door, her voice low and urgent. What the hell is going on here? It's not what it sounds like, Daniel whispered. Dad wanted to do this. He said it would give me security. Security? He just humiliated your father in front of the entire family. Jennifer swept past them, already planning tomorrow's social media posts about her new home. She'd been taking photos all evening, herself in front of Dorothy's china cabinet, posed by the mantelpiece we'd installed in 1995. Mrs. Chen approached me at the kitchen sink where I was washing dishes that would never be dirty again. Edward, she said softly, are you all right? This doesn't seem right. Everything's fine, Mrs. Chen. Just family matters working themselves out. Her eyes searched mine. 30 years of knowing someone creates a language beyond words. She saw something there that worried her. If you need anything, I won't, I assured her, but thank you. After everyone left, I packed one suitcase. Just essentials. The rest of my belongings were Daniel's problem now, or so he thought. Jennifer found me in the hallway with my bag. Going somewhere? Her tone was mocking, victorious. Staying at Patricia's tonight. Give you and Daniel some space to celebrate. How thoughtful. Oh, don't worry about rushing back. We'll take good care of everything. I walked to my car without looking back at the house Dorothy and I had called home for 36 years. What they didn't know would destroy them. The hotel room was small but clean. The Holiday Inn, where Dorothy and I had stayed when we first visited this town, looking for a place to build our life. I called Harrison from the vinyl chair by the window. How was the birthday dinner? Perfect. She took the bait completely. And Daniel? He signed the gift deed papers last month. No witnesses, just like we planned. Harrison's satisfaction carried through the phone. So legally, you still own the house outright. And the sale to Morrison closes tomorrow? 2 o'clock sharp. Cash transfer. The demolition crew has permits for Friday morning. I stared out the hotel window at the parking lot where normal people lived, normal lives. Where adult children didn't steal from their parents. Where gratitude still existed. Edward, are you sure about this? The question hung in the air like smoke from Dorothy's birthday candles. I gave him everything: college tuition, wedding expenses, down payment on his first house, bail money when the gambling got bad, second chances, third chances, chances I couldn't count anymore. And Jennifer? She's been stealing my money, insulting my wife's memory, and treating me like a servant in my own home. Tonight she publicly humiliated me in front of my family. Then tomorrow justice gets served. The wheels were already in motion. I didn't sleep that night. Not from anxiety, from anticipation. For the first time in months, my chest felt loose. My breathing came easy. The constant knot between my shoulder blades began to unravel. Dorothy would have understood this moment. She'd never tolerated disrespect from anyone, including our own son. "Love him, Edward," she'd said during one of Daniel's worst gambling binges, "but don't enable him. Sometimes the kindest thing is to let someone face consequences." I'd been too soft, too accommodating, too desperate to be the loving father instead of the wise one. At 4 a.m., I called the moving company to confirm pickup time, 6 o'clock sharp. Everything I owned would be out before Jennifer woke up for her morning yoga routine. The trust fund paperwork sat on the hotel nightstand. Every penny from the house sale, $685,000, earmarked for Daniel's children. My grandchildren would have college money their father couldn't gamble away. That felt like Dorothy's influence, too, protecting the next generation from this generation's failures. I showered and dressed carefully. The gray suit Dorothy bought me for our 40th anniversary. The watch she gave me when I retired. Today wasn't about revenge. It was about self-respect. Today was about remembering that kindness shouldn't cost you your dignity. Tomorrow, they'd learn the truth. My phone buzzed at 5:30 a.m. Morrison Development, confirming our closing appointment. 2 o'clock at Harrison's office, cash settlement as agreed. Congratulations, Mr. Miller. $685,000, 20% above market value, because developers know the value of a good location. I drove past the house one last time before the movers arrived. Daniel's car in the driveway, Jennifer's BMW, the one she'd leased with money from my savings account, parked where Dorothy used to plant her rose garden. The morning light caught the bedroom window where Dorothy had drawn her last breath 3 years ago, where Jennifer now posted her lifestyle coaching videos about living your best life. Harrison had prepared everything perfectly. Gift deed invalidated due to improper witnessing, sale documents legal and binding, demolition permits approved by the city. I'd kept my promise to Dorothy, left something for the grandchildren, protected what we'd built from people who didn't understand its value. The moving truck pulled up at exactly 6 a.m. Professional crew, discreet and efficient. They'd have my belongings out within 2 hours. I gave them the garage code and my key. Everything in the garage marked with blue tape, nothing else. The people inside don't know you're coming. Understood, sir. The next morning would change everything. I arrived at the house at 7 a.m., just as the moving truck pulled away. My entire life in boxes, heading to my new condo across town. The house looked different in the morning light, smaller somehow, less important. Jennifer's car was still there, Daniel's too. They'd probably celebrated late into the night, toasting their good fortune with wine I'd purchased. I used my key one last time and stepped into the kitchen, coffee brewing automatically, the expensive machine Jennifer had bought with my credit card. Everything quiet and peaceful. In 2 hours, this tranquility would explode. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table where Dorothy and I had shared breakfast for 36 years, where we'd planned vacations, discussed Daniel's problems, dreamed about retirement. The closing documents were in my briefcase, signed and notarized. The house officially belonged to Morrison Development as of yesterday afternoon. They'd been kind enough to let me keep the news private until this morning. At 8:15, I heard footsteps upstairs. Jennifer's morning routine. Yoga, shower, expensive skincare regimen funded by my depleted savings account. At 8:30, the demolition truck turned onto Maple Street. A massive yellow vehicle with Morrison Development site preparation painted on the side. Following behind it, a smaller truck loaded with surveying equipment and safety barriers. I finished my coffee and walked to the front window. Then the truck arrived. The truck parked directly in front of the house, its diesel engine rumbling like controlled thunder. Two men in hard hats climbed out, consulting clipboards and pointing at our front porch. Our former front porch. Behind them came the surveying crew. Orange cones appeared on the sidewalk. Official-looking permits got taped to our mailbox. The noise woke Jennifer. I heard her stumble to the upstairs window, probably expecting to see a cable repair truck or neighborhood construction. Instead, she saw 6 men in hard hats measuring her front yard with surveying equipment. "Edward!" Her voice carried panic even through the ceiling. "Edward, what's going on?" I didn't answer, just walked to the front door and opened it. "Morning," the foreman called out. "Mr. Miller, we're here for the site prep." "Right on schedule," I replied. "Should have the perimeter marked by noon. Demolition starts Friday morning, 6 a.m. sharp." Jennifer's footsteps pounded down the stairs. Daniel stumbled behind her, hair sticking up like a confused rooster. "Site prep for what?" Jennifer demanded, pushing past me onto the front porch. The foreman checked his clipboard. "Demolition and site clearing. New construction project. Morrison Senior Living Complex." Jennifer's face went white. Daniel looked like he'd been slapped with a frozen fish. "There must be some mistake," Daniel said. "This is our house." The foreman looked confused. "Our paperwork shows Edward Miller as the seller. Closed yesterday afternoon." Daniel stumbled outside in his pajamas. "Dad, what is he talking about?" Daniel's voice cracked like thin ice. I pulled out my briefcase and extracted the sale documents. Official county letterhead. Harrison's law firm seal. Morrison Development letterhead. Sale agreement executed yesterday at 2 p.m. $685,000 cash settlement. Daniel grabbed the papers with shaking hands. His eyes darted across the legal language, searching for some escape clause that didn't exist. "But the gift deed. You signed the house over to me." "I signed a gift deed, yes, but it was never properly witnessed or notarized. According to state law, that makes it completely invalid." Jennifer snatched the documents from Daniel's hands. "This is fraud. You can't just sell someone else's house." "It wasn't someone else's house," I said calmly. "It was my house. I owned it free and clear. The gift deed you're thinking of was never legally executed." The surveying crew worked around us, measuring and marking like we were invisible. Professional indifference to our family drama. $685,000? Daniel whispered. "Dad, that's more than the house is worth. Developers pay premium prices for good locations. Morrison is building a 100-unit senior complex. Very profitable." Jennifer started crying. Not pretty tears, but desperate, ugly sobbing. "You can't do this. We live here. This is our home." "No," I said quietly. "This was my home. You were guests who forgot their manners." But the best part was still coming. "Where's the money going?" Daniel asked, still staring at the sale documents. I pulled out another set of papers. Trust fund documentation, legal letterhead, Harrison's signature. "Every penny goes into an educational trust for your children, my grandchildren, college tuition, trade school, whatever they need for their futures." Daniel's mouth opened and closed like a fish breathing air. "The trust is irrevocable," I continued. "Can't be touched by creditors, gambling debts, or poor financial decisions. The kids get it when they turn 18. That's actually..." Daniel couldn't finish the sentence. "Responsible? Yeah, funny how that works." Jennifer stopped crying and started calculating. "We can contest this. Sue the lawyers. There has to be some legal way to..." "Contest what?" "A legitimate property sale. A grandfather setting up college funds. I documented every financial abuse, every stolen credit card charge, every humiliation you put me through. Good luck explaining that to a judge." The foreman approached with a clipboard. "Mr. Miller, we need to confirm the evacuation timeline. When will the property be clear?" I checked my watch. 9:30 a.m. How long do they need to remove personal belongings? Standard protocol is 4 hours for full evacuation. They have until 2 p.m., I announced. Anything left after that becomes property of Morrison Development. Jennifer's face went from white to red to purple. 4 hours? You're giving us 4 hours to move out of our home? It was never your home, and you have exactly 4 hours and 30 minutes. They had exactly 2 hours to vacate. Jennifer fell to her knees on the front porch, actual dramatic onto her knees, pleading, Edward, please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean any of those things I said. The surveying crew pretended not to notice. Professional courtesy toward family breakdowns. We can fix this, she sobbed. I'll pay back every penny. I'll get a job. I'll be respectful. Daniel stood frozen, still holding the legal documents. Reality was sinking in like cold water through cracked concrete. Dad, the gambling. I know I messed up. You didn't just mess up, Daniel. You chose her over me. You enabled her abuse. You participated in stealing my money and my dignity. But I'm your son. Yes, you are. Which makes this hurt 10 times worse. Jennifer grabbed my ankle like a drowning person clutching driftwood. The lease on my apartment expired. I don't have anywhere to go. Figure it out. You're 29 years old with 2 working hands and no dependents. Dorothy was supporting herself at 16. This isn't what Mom would have wanted, Daniel said desperately. The words hung in the morning air like smoke. Your mother warned me about enabling you years ago. She said the kindest thing parents can do sometimes is let their children face consequences. I looked down at Jennifer, still clutching my leg. She also said dignity matters more than keeping peace. A rental truck turned onto Maple Street. U-Haul, 24-footer. That should be big enough for your belongings, I observed. As I watched them scramble, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Not satisfaction exactly, not revenge, just quiet. The last 3 years had been noise, Daniel's problems, Jennifer's demands, financial stress, constant anxiety about losing control of my own life. Now, watching them throw belongings into boxes with desperate efficiency, I felt the way Dorothy's garden must have felt after a good weeding. Neighbors gathered on sidewalks to watch. Mrs. Chen stood on her front porch, arms folded, nodding approval. The Postal Service sees everything, and she'd witnessed months of Jennifer's entitled behavior. Patricia arrived at noon in her sedan, followed by 2 of Daniel's cousins with pickup trucks. Family helping family, even when family had screwed up beyond recognition. Dad, Patricia said quietly, I brought some help. That's kind of you. Are you okay? I'm better than I've been in years. She studied my face like she was reading a difficult book. You planned this. I protected myself. Good. It's about damn time. Jennifer loaded boxes with the frantic energy of someone whose entire worldview had collapsed. Everything she'd taken for granted. The free housing, the unlimited credit cards, the assumption that kindness meant weakness. Gone in one morning. Daniel moved slower, like a man carrying invisible weight. Every few minutes he'd look at me with something that might have been regret. But regret changes nothing. By 1:30 the house was empty except for the furniture that came with it. But that wasn't the end. Daniel stood beside the U-Haul truck, looking smaller than I'd seen him since childhood. The kind of small that comes from realizing your actions have consequences you can't charm or gamble your way out of. Where will you go? I asked. Jennifer's sister has a place in Delaware. Temporary. And after that? He shrugged. 43 years old and shrugging like a teenager who'd missed curfew. I'll figure something out. Maybe I needed this. Jennifer slammed the truck's rear door. Her face was blotchy from crying, her makeup smeared beyond repair. She looked like someone who'd spent years playing a game without reading the rules. This isn't over, she announced. I'm calling lawyers. The news. Someone will care about elder abuse. Feel free, I replied. I have excellent documentation about who was abusing whom. She climbed into the truck's passenger seat and slammed the door hard enough to rattle windows. Daniel lingered. Dad, I know I can't fix this, but I want you to know. I understand why you did it. Do you? You were protecting yourself and protecting my kids from me. The honesty in his voice surprised us both. The trust fund. Thank you. They'll have opportunities I never gave them. I nodded. Words seemed too small for the moment. Maybe someday, he started, then stopped. No, I need to earn that conversation. Within hours, more truth came out. Mrs. Chen crossed the street as the U-Haul pulled away. Edward, I owe you an apology. For what? I believed her story about you being confused, about needing supervision. I should have trusted my own eyes. Your eyes? I saw her throwing out Dorothy's things, heard her on the phone talking about managing the old man's money. But I thought maybe you'd asked for help. Other neighbors emerged like flowers after rain, people who'd been avoiding me for months, uncomfortable with Jennifer's version of reality. Tom from across the street. That girl told my wife you were developing dementia, said we should watch for concerning behavior and report it to her. Sarah from 2 doors down. She asked me not to invite you to block parties anymore, said loud noises upset your condition. Jennifer had been systematically isolating me, creating a narrative where I was incompetent and she was necessary. We should have said something, Mrs. Chen admitted, but family matters seem so private. It's over now, and the demolition crew finished marking the perimeter. Orange spray paint on the driveway, surveying stakes in Dorothy's former flower beds. Where will you live? Tom asked. Bought a condo across town, senior community with a good reputation. Independent living? Very independent. At 3 o'clock, my phone rang. Harrison with news I'd been expecting. The final surprise came later. The senior condo community was everything the house wasn't anymore. Peaceful, respectful, filled with people who understood that dignity mattered more than square footage. My new neighbors introduced themselves properly, brought welcome gifts, asked permission before borrowing sugar. Basic human decency felt exotic after months of Jennifer's entitlement. I unpacked Dorothy's china in my new kitchen, set up her wedding photo on my new mantelpiece, hung her cross-stitch samplers on walls that belonged to me again. The financial stress was gone. No more unauthorized credit card charges. No more mysteriously empty checking accounts. No more supporting 2 adults who contributed nothing but chaos. I slept through the night for the first time in months. My phone rang Tuesday morning. Daniel's number. I let it go to voicemail. Dad, Jennifer left, took what money we had and drove to Vegas. She said the trust fund gave her inspiration to try gambling professionally. A pause. Heavy breathing. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I wanted you to know. I got a job. Real job. Construction. It's honest work like you taught me. Another pause. The kids asked about you, about why Grandpa isn't at the house anymore. I told them the truth, that I disappointed you, that you had to protect yourself from me. I saved the message but didn't call back. Forgiveness was possible. Trust would take longer, much longer. But the story doesn't end there. Jennifer's Vegas adventure lasted exactly 11 days. According to Daniel's sister-in-law, she lost $2,000 on slot machines, tried to scam a casino with a fake injury claim, and got banned from 3 hotels before heading back to Delaware. She'd apparently told everyone in Vegas that she was between properties and liquidating assets. Her social media showed increasingly desperate attempts to maintain the lifestyle she'd been living on my credit cards. The expensive coffee machine she'd bought appeared on Facebook Marketplace within a week. Then the designer purses. Then the jewelry she'd charged to my accounts. Daniel, meanwhile, was learning what real work felt like. Construction starts at 6 a.m., 12-hour days. Actual supervision by people who didn't accept excuses for poor performance. His supervisor was a woman named Rosa, who'd worked her way up from secretary to site foreman. She had opinions about men who let women steal from their fathers. You got a lot of making up to do, she told Daniel during his first week. I know. Start by growing up, 43 years old, crying about consequences. Your father showed you more patience than you deserved. Daniel's paycheck covered a studio apartment and basic groceries. No gambling money, no entertainment budget, just survival. He attended Gamblers Anonymous meetings twice a week, not because a court ordered it, but because living in a studio apartment with nothing but his thoughts, was its own form of intervention. I used my dad as a backup plan for 20 years, he told his support group. Now, I have to be my own backup plan. 3 months after the demolition, Daniel sent a letter. Then came an unexpected letter. The letter arrived on a Thursday, handwritten on plain paper. Daniel's messy cursive, like when he was 8 years old and struggling with homework. Dad, I don't know if you'll read this, but I need to write it anyway. You were right about everything, about Jennifer, about me, about the gambling, about me using you as a safety net instead of learning to fly on my own. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness or money or another chance. I'm writing because I finally understand what you tried to teach me for 43 years. Respect is earned. Responsibility matters. Family doesn't mean taking advantage of people who love you. Jennifer is gone. She took the last of our money and disappeared. I hope she finds whatever she's looking for, but I'm glad she's not finding it with me. I've been working construction for 4 months now. My hands hurt. My back aches. I understand better now what you did for 45 years to build the life I took for granted. The kids visit every other weekend. I told them about the trust fund you set up. Sarah cried, happy tears, when she realized they'd have college money I couldn't touch. I'm not the son you deserved, but I'm trying to become the father my children deserve. That has to start with admitting I was wrong about everything. You don't owe me anything. Not forgiveness, not a relationship, not even a response to this letter. But I want you to know that your lesson finally took. It just took longer than either of us hoped. Daniel. I read it 3 times before putting it in Dorothy's recipe box. The final surprise came later. I kept Daniel's letter for 2 weeks before responding. Not because I needed time to think, but because I needed time to feel. Anger was easy. Disappointment came naturally. But forgiveness, that required careful consideration. I wrote back on a Sunday afternoon. Daniel, I read your letter. Thank you for the honesty. You're right. You weren't the son I deserved. But I wasn't always the father you needed either. I enabled your problems because I was afraid of losing you. That fear made things worse for both of us. The construction job sounds good. Hard work builds character, and character builds men. I'm proud that you told the children the truth about the trust fund. They deserve to understand that actions have consequences, both good and bad. You asked for nothing in this letter. That's the first time in 20 years you've talked to me without wanting something. It's a good start. I'm not ready for regular contact. Trust, once broken, heals slowly. But I'm not ready to close that door forever either. Keep working. Keep growing. Keep being honest with yourself and your children. Maybe someday we can share coffee and talk about Dorothy's garden. She always believed people could change if they wanted it badly enough. Show me you want it. Dad. I mailed the letter on Monday morning. 3 months later, Daniel sent a photo, him and the kids at their school play. He looked tired but clean, present, small steps toward rebuilding. Today, when I look back, 1 year later, I wake up in my own bed, in my own home, surrounded by my own choices. The senior community suits me. People here understand boundaries. They knock before entering. They ask permission before borrowing things. They split dinner checks and pay their own bills. Revolutionary concepts. Dorothy's photo sits on my nightstand next to a letter from Daniel that arrived last week. 6 months of steady work. Regular child support payments, Gamblers Anonymous meetings. The kids ask about you, Mo, he wrote. I tell them Grandpa is proud of them and loves them from a distance until trust gets rebuilt. Smart answer, honest answer. The trust fund documentation sits framed in my kitchen. $685,000 growing with compound interest until my grandchildren turn 18. Jennifer never contacted me again after Vegas. According to social media reports from Daniel's cousins, she's moved on to a different state and a different man. The pattern continues. Some people change. Others just change locations. I volunteer at the community garden now, teaching elderly residents about electrical systems in greenhouses. Dorothy would approve of helping others grow things. Mrs. Chen visits every Tuesday for coffee. We discuss neighborhood news and remember when families took care of each other instead of taking advantage. The demolition of Maple Street went smoothly. Morrison's senior living complex is half built now. It looks like a place Dorothy might have enjoyed living. Full circle. If you're listening to this and recognizing your own story, let me tell you something important. You don't owe anyone your dignity. Not your children, not your spouse, not your relatives, or friends or anyone else who confuses kindness with weakness. Love doesn't mean enabling bad behavior. It doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It doesn't mean funding someone else's poor choices indefinitely. Setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's necessary. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their actions. I spent 20 years trying to save Daniel from himself. All I accomplished was teaching him that someone else would always solve his problems. That's not love. That's harm disguised as helpfulness. Jennifer was never my responsibility. I let her become my problem because I was afraid of conflict, afraid of being called mean or selfish or hard-hearted. Being called names hurts. Being used hurts worse. Document everything. Protect your assets. Get legal advice before making emotional decisions. And remember, you've earned the right to live peacefully in your own home. Stand up for yourself. Set boundaries. Protect what you've built. The people who truly love you will respect those boundaries. The people who don't respect them, they're telling you who they really are. Believe them. And if this story helped you find your courage, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Today I planted tomatoes in my community garden plot. Dorothy's variety, Cherokee Purples. The seeds came from the same company we ordered from for 30 years. My hands still remember the work. Loosening soil, measuring spacing, watering gently. Daniel called yesterday. Our first actual conversation in 8 months. Dad, the kids' school is having a grandparents' day next month. Would you consider coming? I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Yes, I'd like that. Really? Really. But we're meeting at a restaurant first. Neutral territory. You pay for your own meal. He laughed. Actually laughed. Fair enough. Trust rebuilds one conversation at a time. One kept promise at a time. One honest interaction at a time. Jennifer sent a Facebook friend request last week. I deleted it without opening. Some bridges are meant to stay burned. The Morrison Senior Complex held its grand opening last month. Beautiful facility. The kind of place Dorothy and I might have moved to eventually, if we'd had the chance to grow old together. The residents look happy, safe, respected. Sometimes destroying something creates space for something better. I keep Dorothy's wedding ring in a small jewelry box on my kitchen counter. Next to it, a photo of my grandchildren from Daniel's last letter. Past and future, side by side, and I sleep better than I have in years.